everyone. Welcome back to Spinning Iris. It is day 24 of Banned Book Month, which means it is time for chapter 24 of Candide by Voltaire. In the last chapter, Candide and Martin stopped by the coast of England, decided it was not the best place for them, and made their way straight to Venice. Now let's find out what happens next. Are you ready? Let's go. Chapter 24. Paquette and Brother Giroflée. As soon as he was in Venice, he looked for Cacambo in all the inns and cafes, and asked all the women of easy virtue about him, but he did not find him. Every day he sent messengers to all incoming ships and boats. No news of Cacambo. "How can this be?" he said to Martin. "I've had time to go from Suriname to Bordeaux, from Bordeaux to Paris, from Paris to Dieppe, and from Dieppe to Portsmouth, then sail down the coast of Spain and Portugal, cross the Mediterranean, and spend several months in Venice, and still the fair Cunegonde hasn't come. Instead of her, I've met only an infamous wench and an abbé from Périgord. Cunegonde must be dead, and the only thing left for me is to die too. Oh, it would have been better to stay in the paradise of El Dorado, instead of coming back to this devilish Europe. How right you are, my dear Martin. Life is nothing but illusions and calamities." He sank into black melancholy, and would have nothing to do with the opera à la moda or the other amusements of the carnival. But one lady made him feel the slightest temptation. "You certainly are naive," said Martin, "to imagine that a half-breed valet, with 5 or 6 million in his pocket, will go to find your mistress at the end of the world and bring her to you here in Venice. If he finds her, he'll take her for himself. If he doesn't, he'll take another woman. I advise you to forget about your valet, Cacambo, and your mistress, Cunegonde." Martin was not very comforting. Candide's melancholy increased, and Martin was constantly proving to him that there was little virtue or happiness in the world, except perhaps in El Dorado, where no one could go. One day, as he was discussing this important question and waiting for Cunegonde, Candide saw a young Theatin monk in St. Mark's Square, arm in arm with a girl. The monk appeared to be healthy, plump, and vigorous. He had bright eyes, an air of self-assurance, a firm countenance, and a proud bearing. The girl was very pretty. She sang as she walked with her monk, gazed at him amorously, and pinched his chubby cheeks from time to time. "You'll at least admit that those two are happy," said Candide to Martin. "Till now I've met nothing but unfortunate people in all the inhabitable world, except in El Dorado, but I'll bet that girl and that monk are very happy." "I'll bet they're not," said Martin. "All we have to do is to invite them to dinner," said Candide, "and you'll see if I'm wrong." He immediately went up to them, paid his respects to them, and invited them to his inn to eat macaroni, Lombardy partridges, and caviar, with Lacrima Christi, and wines from Montepulciano, Cyprus, and Samos. The young lady blushed. The monk accepted the offer, and she followed him, looking at Candide in surprise and embarrassment, her eyes dimmed by a few tears. As soon as she entered his bedroom, she said to him, "What, don't you recognize Paquette, Master Candide?" At these words, Candide, who had not looked at her attentively till then, because he was still preoccupied with Cunegonde, said to her, "Alas, poor child, so you're the one who put Dr. Pangloss in such fine condition." "Alas, sir, it's true," said Paquette. "I see you know all about it. I've heard of the terrible things that happened to the Baroness's whole household, including the fair Cunegonde, and I swear my fate has been just as sad. I was completely innocent when you first saw me. A Franciscan friar, who was my confessor, easily seduced me, and the results were horrible. I was forced to leave the castle a short time after the Baron had driven you away with hard kicks in the behind. If a famous doctor hadn't taken pity on me, I'd have died. I became his mistress for a while, out of gratitude. His wife was violently jealous, and she beat me unmercifully every day. She was a fury. The doctor was the ugliest man in the world, and I was the most miserable creature alive, from being constantly beaten for a man I didn't love. You know, sir, how dangerous it is for a shrewish woman to be a doctor's wife. One day, exasperated by her behavior, I gave her some medicine for a slight cold, and it worked so well that she died 2 hours later in horrible convulsions. Her family tried to have him arrested for murder, but he ran away, and I was put in prison. My innocence would have saved me if I hadn't been rather pretty. The judge released me on condition that I let him take the doctor's place. I was soon supplanted by a rival, driven away without any compensation, and forced to continue that abominable trade which seems so pleasant to you men, but which is nothing but an abyss of misery for us. I came to Venice to practice my profession. Oh, sir, if you could only imagine what it's like to be forced to caress without discrimination an old merchant, a lawyer, a monk, a gondolier, or a priest, to be exposed to every kind of insult and abuse, to be often reduced to borrowing a skirt for some disgusting man to lift up, to be robbed by one man of what you've earned with another, to be blackmailed by magistrates, and have nothing to look forward to except an atrocious old age, the workhouse, and the garbage dump, you'd conclude that I'm one of the most wretched creatures in the world." It was thus that Paquette opened her heart to the kindly Candide, as they sat in a small private room with Martin. "You see, I've already won half the bet," said Martin to Candide. Brother Giroflée had remained in the dining-room, and was having a drink while he waited for dinner. "But you looked so gay and happy when I met you," Candide said to Paquette. "You were singing and caressing your monk with such natural affection. You seemed as happy then as you now claim to be unfortunate." "Oh, sir," replied Paquette, "that's one more misery of my profession. Yesterday I was robbed and beaten by an officer, and today I must appear to be in a cheerful mood to please a monk." Candide had heard enough. He admitted that Martin was right. They sat down to table with Paquette and the monk. The meal was rather enjoyable, and by the end of it they were talking to one another with a certain intimacy. "Father," Candide said to the monk, "you seem to be leading a life that anyone would envy. You're obviously in the pink of health. Your face is aglow with happiness. You have a pretty girl for your recreation, and you appear to be quite content with your lot as a Theatin monk." "Believe me, sir," said Brother Giroflée, "I wish the Theatins were all at the bottom of the sea. I've been tempted 100 times to set fire to the monastery and go off and become a Turk. My parents forced me to put on this hateful robe at the age of 15, so that they could leave a larger fortune to my cursed elder brother, may the devil take him. The monastery is filled with jealousy, discord, and anger. It's true that I've preached a few bad sermons that have brought me a little money. The prior steals half of it, and I spend the rest on women. But each time I go back to the monastery at night, I'm ready to smash my head against the wall of the dormitory, and all the other monks feel the same." Martin turned to Candide with his usual composure and said, "Well, haven't I won the whole bet?" Candide gave Paquette 2,000 piastres and Brother Giroflée 1,000. "I assure you they'll be happy with that," he said. "I'm sure they won't," said Martin. "It may be that those piastres will make them unhappier than before." "Perhaps so," said Candide, "but one thing consoles me. I've learned that we often come across people we thought we'd never see again. Since I've found my red sheep and Paquette, it's quite possible that I'll also find Cunegonde." "I hope she'll make you happy some day," said Martin, "but I strongly doubt it." "You're a bitter man," said Candide. "That's because I've lived," said Martin. "But look at those gondoliers. They're always singing," said Candide. "You don't see them at home with their wives and their little brats," said Martin. "The Doge has his troubles, and gondoliers have theirs. It's true that on the whole a gondolier's life is preferable to a Doge's, but I think the difference is so small that it's not worth examining." "I've been told about a senator named Pococurante," said Candide, "who lives in a beautiful palace on the Brenta, and always gives strangers a courteous welcome. They say he's a man who's never known sorrow or trouble." "I'd like to see such a rare specimen," said Martin. Candide immediately sent Signor Pococurante a request for permission to visit him the following day. All right, so there's one 110 trunk mystery solved. What happened to the girl getting a lesson in cause and effect from Dr. Pangloss at the beginning. There's a little note on the name of Pococurante, meaning caring little. So I'm sure that's going to play into his personality. We'll find out more about this Pococurante, and we'll find out more about Candide's adventures in Venice tomorrow. Hope you'll join me then. Take care. Bye-bye.